Imagine waking up one morning, having breakfast, getting dressed, and by the time you finish your second cup of coffee, a war has already started and ended. That is not fiction. That actually happened. On the morning of August 27, 1896, a war broke out on a small island off the coast of East Africa. It involved a royal palace, 5 British warships, nearly 3,000 soldiers, and it was completely over in 38 minutes. 500 people were killed. One side lost everything. By lunchtime, a new ruler was already sitting on the throne. This is the story of the Anglo-Zanzibar War, the shortest war in recorded history. And almost nobody knows it happened. Zanzibar was more than just a dot on the map. It was the center of a vast trading web that stretched from the interior of Africa to the markets of Europe and Asia. The island's docks bustled with cargo, cloves by the ton, ivory tusks stacked for shipment, and until recently, enslaved people forced across the Indian Ocean. By the 1890s, Zanzibar supplied 3/4 of the world's cloves, a fortune in spice that filled the Sultan's coffers and drew merchant ships from every direction. Ivory, harvested from deep inland, flowed through the customs houses at a rate of 12,000 tons a year, adding tens of thousands of pings to the treasury. The slave trade, although officially banned, still cast a long shadow, with thousands trafficked each year and customs duties quietly collected. Control of Zanzibar meant control of all this wealth, a gateway for British steamships heading to India, a critical stop for coal and fresh water, and a choke point on the Indian Ocean's busiest sea lane. Whoever ruled the island didn't just hold a palace, they held the keys to an empire's fortunes. A single sentence in the 1890 Protectorate Treaty changed everything. The agreement, signed under British pressure, gave London final say over who could rule Zanzibar. Any new sultan needed written approval from the British consul, no exceptions. If that rule was ignored, the treaty allowed Britain to intervene with whatever force was needed to protect its subjects and interests. When Sultan Hamid bin Thuwaini died suddenly, the throne stood empty for only a few hours. But the legal vacuum was dangerous. The British saw the risk. A rival might seize power without their blessing, threatening the flow of cloves, ivory, and the security of their shipping lanes. The treaty's language was clear and cold. If Zanzibar's ruler defied British authority, the empire would act. Now, with the Sultan dead and the palace in limbo, the law itself became a loaded weapon, ready to be fired. Khalid bin Barghash moved fast. Before the old sultan's body was cold, he swept into the palace, locked the gates, and declared himself ruler. No British signature, no waiting for approval. He ordered the palace guard to stand ready, promised gold to loyal merchants, and sent word to the city's leading sheiks that the throne was his by right and by blood. From the palace balcony, his men read proclamations in 3 languages, daring anyone to challenge his claim. Khalid's message was blunt. Zanzibar would not be ruled from London. Inside the palace walls, he gathered nearly 3,000 supporters, soldiers, servants, and a handful of foreign advisors, arming them with old rifles and 4 battered cannons. The British consul's warnings went unanswered. Khalid believed the empire would hesitate, that British warships would never risk open fire on the heart of Zanzibar. But as the Union Jack fluttered over 5 steel warships in the harbor, the city held its breath. Khalid had gambled everything on a single, defiant move. At dawn, the harbor bristled with steel. 5 British warships floated just beyond cannon range, their decks cleared for action, smoke rising from funnels. On shore, palace guards peered from behind sandbags, clutching old rifles, waiting for an order that might never come. At 6:30 in the morning, a crisp telegram arrived at the palace gates. It said, "Surrender by 9 o'clock or face naval fire." Khalid bin Barghash read the message and sent no reply. He paced the palace halls, convinced the British would not risk their reputation by shelling a royal residence in broad daylight. The clock ticked down. In the harbor, gunners loaded shells, officers checked their watches, and signal flags snapped in the morning breeze. Consul Cave waited for a white flag that never appeared. By 8:55, every gun was trained on the palace. Khalid's gamble, betting that Empire would blink first, was about to be tested against the cold machinery of British command. At 9 o'clock, the deadline passed. No surrender. The order was given. At exactly 9:02 in the morning, the first British shells tore into the palace walls. Rear Admiral Rawson's order echoed across the decks, and 5 warships unleashed their guns in unison. Stone and plaster exploded as the western bastion collapsed, sending defenders scrambling for cover. The royal yacht Glasgow, anchored near the jetty, took a direct hit from a 6-inch shell and vanished beneath the harbor in minutes. The thunder of cannon fire rolled through the city. Inside the palace, confusion and panic spread. By the end of the opening salvo, the defenders' lines had broken, and the heart of Khalid's resistance was already in ruins. By 9:40, a white flag fluttered above the shattered palace. The guns fell silent. Khalid slipped out through a side door and vanished into the German consulate, leaving his followers to face the wreckage. British Marines marched in, and by midday, Hamud bin Muhammad, London's chosen candidate, sat on the throne. Power had changed hands in less than an hour. Power can flatten resistance in less than an hour, but its consequences echo for generations. Empire redraws lines quickly, yet the struggle over who belongs still shapes borders today.